most important monarch of the underground world was a fat little man clothed in gray-brown garments that were the exact color of the rock throne in which he was seated. His bushy hair and flowing beard were also colored like the rocks, and so was his face. He wore no crown of any sort, and his only ornament was a broad, jeweled-studded belt that encircled his fat little body. As for his features, they seemed kindly and good-humored, and his eyes were turned merrily upon his visitors as Ozma and Dorothy stood before him with their followers ranged in close order behind them.
"Why, he looks just like Santa Claus, only he isn't the same color,"
whispered Dorothy to her friend, but the Nome King heard the speech, and it made him laugh aloud.
"He had a red face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly,"
quoth the monarch in a pleasant voice, and they could all see that he really did shake like jelly when he laughed. Both Ozma and Dorothy were much relieved to find the Nome King so jolly, and a minute later he waved his right hand, and the girls each found a cushioned stool at her side.
"Sit down, my dears," said
the king,
"and tell me why you have come all this way to see me, and what I can do to make you happy."
While they seated themselves, the Nome King picked up a pipe, and taking a glowing red coal out of his pocket, he placed it in the bowl of the pipe and began puffing out clouds of smoke that curled in rings above his head. Dorothy thought this made the little monarch look more like Santa Claus than ever, but Ozma now began speaking, and everyone listened intently to her words.
"Your Majesty,"
said she,
"I am the ruler of the land of Oz, and I have come here to ask you to release the good Queen of Ev and her 10 children, whom you have enchanted, and hold as your prisoners."
"Oh, no, you are mistaken about that,"
replied the king.
"They are not my prisoners, but my slaves, whom I purchased from the King of Ev."
"But that was wrong,"
said Ozma.
"According to the laws of Ev, the king can do no wrong,"
answered the monarch, eyeing a ring of smoke he had just blown from his mouth.
"So that he had a perfect right to sell his family to me in exchange for a long life."
"You cheated him, though,"
declared Dorothy.
"for the King of Ev did not have a long life. He jumped into the sea and was drowned."
"That was not my fault,"
said the Nome King, crossing his legs and smiling contentedly.
"I gave him the long life all right, but he destroyed it."
"Then how could it be a long life?"
asked Dorothy.
"Easily enough,"
was the reply.
"Now suppose, my dear, that I gave you a pretty doll in exchange for a lock of your hair, and that after you had received the doll, you smashed it into pieces and destroyed it. Could you say that I had not given you a pretty doll?"
"No,"
answered Dorothy.
"And could you, in fairness, ask me to return to you the lock of hair just because you had smashed the doll?"
"No,"
said Dorothy again.
"Of course not,"
the Nome King returned.
"Nor will I give up the queen and her children because the King of Ev destroyed his long life by jumping into the sea. They belong to me, and I shall keep them."
"But you are treating them cruelly,"
said Ozma, who was much distressed by the king's refusal.
"In what way?"
he asked.
"By making them your slaves,"
said she.
"Cruelty,"
remarked the monarch, puffing out wreaths of smoke and watching them float into the air,
"is a thing I can't abide. So as slaves must work hard, and the Queen of Ev and her children were delicate and tender, I transformed them all into articles of ornament and bric-a-brac, and scattered them around the various rooms of my palace. Instead of being obliged to labor, they merely decorate my apartments, and I really think I have treated them with great kindness."
"But what a dreadful fate is theirs!"
exclaimed Ozma earnestly.
"And the kingdom of Ev is in great need of its royal family to govern it. If you will liberate them and restore them to their proper forms, I will give you 10 ornaments to replace each one you lose."